that we have available. First of all, if you go to blogs.manageengine.com, you'll see that we have Active Directory blogs that we post pretty much on a weekly basis. They're not always about our products. Actually, it's about a 50-50 split. Try to keep the blog to less than 5 minutes of your time. So if it's something that pertains to you, something that you can benefit from, fantastic. Otherwise, I did waste but maybe 5 minutes of your time. So that we have available to you. I also want to point you to our security hardening page, which we're going to focus on quite a bit today. But to get to that, if you just go to the main landing page, manageengine.com, click on Active Directory, the drop-down appears, and then you have security hardening. This is a site that we put together about 1.5 years ago, and it is by far one of the most information-rich sites that you will see. Very, very powerful. And we'll go back to that site, and I'll tell you how to use that site a little bit more as we talk about the topic today. Finally, I want to point you to a brand new white paper that we have, and it's related to passwords and identity management. So if you come to our main landing page again, go to Active Directory, Identity Password Management, Documents, and then go to White Papers. It is our thwarting hackers. And we basically talk a little bit about the password attacks that are relevant today. We talk about how to secure them, the shortcomings that Microsoft has, and what you can put in place to help secure those. So those are some really good resources. Everything that you saw there is 100% free. Don't require any information from you to consume that information. Finally, I want to point you to our world tour. I know that there are quite a few people from around the world on this webinar, and I want to lead you to whichever region you're in to go look at our world tour seminars. We were just in the UK last week, and then we will be in Dubai next week. The week after that, we will be in Johannesburg, and then the week after that we will be in Germany. So we get around quite a bit. These world tour events, whether it be a seminar or a user conference, are great ways for you to meet other people from your region, as well as get information that helps solve problems that you have on a daily basis. So that's a little bit of information about me and what I do. I also want to go over some logistics. We will be recording this, so if you want this shared with anyone else or you want to go back over it again, you will be receiving an email, and in the email a link. If you don't get that email for some reason, please email us and we will get you that link. If you do have any questions along the way, yesterday we had to have had at least 50 to 75 questions. There is someone working with me kind of in the background answering those questions, so please use your GoToWebinar panel to ask questions, and we will answer those as we go through, so please do that. If for some reason we can't get to your question before the end, we will email you an answer or somehow communicate with you to get you answers to your questions. So without further ado, let's move forward. Let's talk about compliance and security. Now, I've been working with auditors primarily in the United States now for about 15 years. And this idea of compliance, when you talk about security, really has to be separated, okay? Because compliance without security doesn't give you security, but if you get good security and then you worry about compliance, most of the time you're in compliance. So let's really take a look at this from my perspective. Now, we have many different compliance regulations, right? We have PCI related to credit cards. We have Sarbanes-Oxley related to financials. We have GDPR, which is coming down hard in Europe. And we have many other compliance regulations. Now, in my opinion, as an Active Directory / security professional, I don't worry about the compliance as much as I worry about security, okay? The reason is compliance regulations are not usually very focused and targeted. they're, I use the term a little loosey-goosey, right? If I read a compliance regulation, I may interpret it one way. If you read the exact same compliance regulation, you might interpret it a totally different way. Who's right and who's wrong? Well, because the compliance regulation isn't written specifically, neither one of us are wrong. But when you're dealing with auditors that are interpreting these compliance regulations and they're coming into your organization, you might have two totally different requirements in the same year for the same compliance regulation. So if you really try to be compliant, it may change over time. But if you worry about security, then most compliance regulations are going to be met. The only thing that really compliance regulations can't cover with regard to security is process. Now, when I talk about security, I'm actually talking about configurations in the operating system. I'm talking about configurations in the registry for applications, for objects in Active Directory, for settings that you can make, okay? So instead of trying to meet compliance solely, meet security, okay? Again, I've been dealing with compliance for 15 years in the United States. And when I go into organizations and they show me the compliance regulations around Sarbanes-Oxley, it's not security. So I don't want people to get a false sense that they're secure because they're compliant. It's two totally different things. So what I want to do is I want to point you down the path of security focus, and then compliance comes out of that, okay? If security is met, then compliance is met, all right? Now, compliance starts with reporting, all right? If you have a wrong report, you have unknown configurations. Unknown configurations means unknown security, okay? Now, how does this relate to compliance? Let me give you an example. I'm going to go into my operating system here, okay? Now, I'm going to go in here and I am going to come down here to Active Directory users. Nope, I'm not going to go to Active Directory user computers. I'm going to go to Group Policy Management. Now, if we talk about the password policy, right, the domain password policy, by default, the domain password policy is in the default domain policy. If I go to settings, I go to security settings, password policy, and I take a screen capture of this, that is a report, okay? That is a screen capture report. Now, what is this report telling me? Well, this report is telling me the configurations that are in that group policy object, okay? Now, if I go back to my slide, wrong reports equal unknown configurations. Well, is this a wrong report? Now I want you guys to think about this. Everyone on this webinar, I want you to think about this. How do you report on the current password policy for your domain users? If you are doing anything around the default domain policy, I am telling you right now that report is worthless. Okay? Let me prove it. All right? Now, I'm going to go to a different report. I'm going to go to seccpol.msc. seccpol.msc stands for security policy. Now, inside of this security policy, I have a password policy. Now, notice that these settings differ from these settings. This right here, the local security policy on this domain controller, are the actual settings that are in place right now. So I'll ask you again, is this report wrong? The answer is yes. Okay? Now, if I run this report right here from the group policy management console, and I give that to my compliance auditor, it might meet compliance regulations. So, yes, I just met compliance regulations, but it was completely made up information. What is key? Security is key. Just because I meet compliance regulations doesn't mean that I'm secure. Look at this. This is a pathetic password policy. This is what is in place right now. So compliance doesn't equal security. And analyzing incorrect reports doesn't equal good security. If I analyze the wrong report, I don't even know what I'm looking at, okay? So we have to make sure that we report correctly. We have to have tools that generate good reports. I have to do it easily, okay? I want it automated, and I want to be able to delegate it to someone else. Now, what does that mean? Well, easy means I want to be able to go and click and get my report in a couple of easy steps. Automated, if possible, I want these reports generated weekly, monthly. And if possible, I don't want to do the work. I want to delegate it to someone else, maybe even the auditor. If possible, we want to do this in as few tools as possible, okay? Why? Well, fewer tools mean less cost for the purchase of the tool and for the people that are running the tools. Less overhead, fewer servers, fewer installations, fewer management, fewer patching, and it's going to be easier to manage. If I just go to one tool, it's a lot easier to manage than having to go to 5 different tools. So when you start looking at compliance, and I know many of you dealing with GDPR are just now having to deal with these new compliance regulations. My suggestion is that you go in and you try to find a tool that can help you manage the reporting and the monitoring as much as possible, okay? Now, continued compliance requires monitoring, all right? Now, let's say that I go in to Active Directory and I run this report. This is my report, okay? Now, this report tells me that my configurations are not correct. So let's say that I go into group policy and I modify the settings. I rerun SecPol and I get a new report that says everything is good. I give that to the auditor. A week goes by. How confident are you that those settings didn't change again? Now, this is usually a loaded question because many of you are going, well, if I didn't change it, then I'm pretty confident. But how many people in your organization can change group policy? Usually it's more than one. So if you and one or more other people can change group policy, how confident are you that your settings that you just put in place haven't changed? Well, that's where monitoring comes in, because monitoring allows you to have reporting and configurations that are good over time. But if you do reporting and configurations without monitoring, you have unknown configurations, okay? It's just the way it is. If you aren't being told every time a change is made, you don't know what your current configuration is. There's no question, okay? Changes can occur within seconds after the configuration is made. And if you aren't being told of those changes, then how do you know? Let me give you another example, okay? Right now, those of you on this webinar, how many of you feel confident that you know the members of your enterprise admins group? Okay, enterprise admins right here. How many of you feel confident of this group? Now, I want you, after this webinar, because I'm going to give you a list of things to do, I want you to go and look at your built-in privileged groups, domain admins, enterprise admins, and schema admins. And before you look at the group membership, I want you to document who you think should be in those groups. Then I want you to go and I want you to get a report of those groups. I guarantee you 75% of you on this webinar or more are going to have users in those groups that you didn't know were there. This is my point, because you weren't monitoring. But imagine if someone were to go in and modify one of these groups by putting another user in here, right? So let's say Sammy is placed in the group. I have monitoring set up. Watch this. I can go to a tool that's monitoring these changes. And I right here have an alert telling me that someone was added to that group. This is the way to meet security and compliance. In my opinion, this is a security setting. But because I can run reports on changes to groups, it also becomes compliance. Do you notice how security is first and then compliance comes after? But we have to have the right tools in place. If you have monitoring and alerting, you have real-time monitoring in place, real-time compliance, right now, right here. Every change that occurs in Active Directory, you are notified of that. Okay? So how do you get Active Directory compliance? Well, we've done the heavy lifting for you. I'm going to send you back to this web page. This web page right here, which is our security hardening site. You go to manageengine.com, you go to Active Directory, security hardening. At the bottom of this page, we have all of the key areas that auditors worry about for Active Directory compliance. Groups, users, privileged groups, user rights, delegation, passwords, auditing, service accounts. They're all right here. Every single one of these, if you click on it, it expands into multiple blogs to tell you how to do it. Okay? It is our belief at ManageEngine that in order to be secure and compliant, there are 5 steps. Okay? 5 steps. Let me jot those steps down for you, okay? Right here. Step 1 is report. Step 2 is analyze. Step 3 is configure. Step 4 is monitor. Step 5, alert. If you do all these steps with all of those settings, you are going to be secure all the time, and you are going to meet compliance all the time. Okay? So let's walk through some examples. Let me walk you through how this works. And what I want to do is I want to point you to how to do this using the right tools. Okay? Now, compliance is a variety of different things. It's configurations, it's access, it's use, it's everything. So instead of worrying about the buckets, worry about the details. Let's talk about administrative accounts, okay? Inside of Active Directory, by default, you have one administrative account called administrator. You need to secure that account. Now, in order to secure the account, that's the 3rd step. Remember, configuration is the 3rd step. You need to run a report on what's there now. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to ask you to use the Microsoft tools to do this first. Okay? So where's administrator? Administrator is right here. Okay? My question to you is, how do you generate a report on administrator to make sure that it's secure? Well, what's secure mean? Well, those of you that have never dealt with an audit before, secure means that this account isn't being used. So I need to get a track of when this account has logged on. I need to make sure this account has been renamed so that it isn't obvious someone can log on as administrator. Let's check those two. First of all, if I use the Microsoft tools, how do I know the last time this account logged on? It's not anywhere in these properties. I guarantee you it's nowhere here. There is nowhere in these properties that tell me it logged on. Now, if I have auditing set up, tracking of logons, I can go to Event Viewer. Okay? If I go to Event Viewer and I come here to my Windows log, security log, in these 150,000 events, it may or may not tell me if administrator logged on. Now, today is the 15th. My log only goes back to the 14th. So that means, unless I am archiving this, I'm not going to know if the administrator logged in before yesterday. Tools aren't working for us, are they? You have to have the right tool. Now, assume we do have the right tool. Assume we have a tool like ADAudit Plus, which allows us to run reports on user logons. Okay? User logon activity. I want to go over the last 1 year. Okay? Now, what I want to do is I want to add administrator. Okay? So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to type in administrator. Okay? Select administrator. So I want to know when administrator has logged on over the last year. And right there, June 1, 2016, almost a year ago. Tell me you can find this information without the right tool. You can't. Okay? So this is the process. For those of you that aren't that familiar with compliance regulations, you're going to be asked some of the wildest questions. And without the right tool, there's no way to generate this information. With the right tool, you saw right there, 3 clicks and I had the information. Now, I also need to know about the current configuration of administrator. I need to know if it's renamed. Now, I'm going to go back here. How do you know if administrator is renamed? Well, those of you that do or don't know this, administrator has some. Okay. Now, I'm going to come in here through Active Directory users and computers to the to the attribute editor. Now, this is not friendly, but at least I can get the information. If I go down here, you will see that I have something called a SID. Somewhere, where's my SID? Object SID, right here. Notice this, okay? Now, this object SID tells me if I've renamed administrator. The administrator account that comes with Active Directory ends in 500. So have I renamed administrator? The answer is yes. So I can take a screen capture of this to prove this. But now I need to know which other account has 500. How are you going to do that, right? Well, you could manipulate it, you could write scripts, you could use PowerShell, but what I'm telling you is with the right tool, right? ADManager Plus tells you the current configurations. Users, user report. Generate all users. Notice that I can add or remove columns and I have the name and the SID. So now I'm just filtering on this. And I can come down here and I can just look for 500. Okay? Now, you'll notice when I hit it, okay, because it sticks out now that we know what we're looking for. Ah, right there, James Bond. So with the right tool, you can easily generate reports to prove to auditors, to prove to yourself and your team that things are configured properly. Now, we have talked about logons. We have talked about current configurations. Now, what about changes? This is the monitoring and alerting. How do you know if administrator changes configurations? Again, I'm going to go back to the Microsoft tool. How do you know if James Bond changes? How do you know if administrator changes? Are you really going to rely on this event viewer? Watch this. I'm just going to go and make the change. I'm going to go into administrator, and I'm going to reset the password, okay? I reset the password. Oops, guess I got to type it correctly, huh? Hopefully I did it right that time. Okay, been changed. How do you know that? How do you know that? I know it because here I am tracking changes in Active Directory, and I now have an alert telling me that the password was changed for administrator because I have a report set up that says if the 500 account somewhere, administrator 500 modifications. Tell me this isn't powerful. Tell me this isn't powerful. Over the last 6 months, I can tell you all the changes that occurred to administrator and or James Bond. And I have alerts set up which tell me if those change right here. You'll notice I just have an alert from that report, and I can even send an email. The power of the tool becomes everything you need. Privilege groups. I've already showed you that with privilege groups, you can verify the membership, you can track the changes. Now with groups, one of the things you have to worry about is who's in the group, okay? So let's say the auditor knocks on your door and they say, I need to know all of the users that are part of the administrators group. You say, not a problem. You come in here to Active Directory user computers, you go to members, and you take a screenshot. I'd like to generate a report, but it doesn't exist. So I take a screenshot. Do I have the full list of users that are in the administrators group? The answer is no, because I have nested groups. Is there an option anywhere in Active Directory users and computers to get a list of groups recursively? No. Does Microsoft have a tool? Yeah, PowerShell. You mean that you're going to have to run a PowerShell script every single time you want to do that? Or you use a tool that's actually designed to do this. Reports, group members. I want details, administrators, users, generate. There's my list. I want it in a PDF. Done. You got to get the right tools. Now, we're talking about in-depth reporting. Well, why not create a scheduled report? I can create a report that says, I want to know when administrators, users and groups, and I want to run the report daily. Why wouldn't I? Now, earlier I talked about what a tool should have. A tool should be easy. I don't think this can be easier. A tool should be automated. I am automating a report to be generated for the users recursively in groups. I can add as many groups as I want here. I can save it as a certain format, right? Storage format. Notice PDF, everything here. And I can run it daily and send an email. What about delegation? Not a problem. Watch this. I'm going to floor you with this one. You can set up delegation for report generating. Look at this. Group members right here. I can delegate this. I can go in here and click all of the reports for users, passwords, groups, computers, exchange, all these things that any auditor should be able to run a report on and give them that capability. Done. They no longer knock on my door. They just go run their own report. So did I solve everything? I think I did. I have an easy tool, one tool, that automates, right? I can automate any report, and I can delegate it to someone else. So that means that your auditors can have 100% access to Active Directory reporting. So anytime they need to generate a report for any compliance regulation around Active Directory, they can do it. You can also schedule it to where They just have it. Why have them go in and use the tool when you could just schedule it and pump out the reports for them on a daily basis? So what reports do you need? Well, we talked about administrative accounts. We've talked about privileged accounts or privileged groups. What about just users, right? I want to know users and their true last logon. We go back to Active Directory. Where do I find my user's true last logon, right? Where's it at? It's not even in here. With the right tool. Okay, again, I hope I'm flooring you with this because this is some pretty powerful stuff. I'm going to create a report for users. Okay, you ready for this? The real last logon, this will go across all of your domain controllers gathering that, but I don't just want the real last logon, I want to also get all of these other password expires, I want to get information about their logon name, password date, I want to get which OU, their password last set time, their SID, all that in one report. Done. Automated. Generated daily. This is the power of a tool that's designed to do this. Okay? So we're hitting all of the critical areas. Let's talk about Active Directory delegation. We've already talked about the password policy and how to generate that, right? You can do that in ADManager Plus too. But AD delegation, okay? Active Directory delegation. I come in here to Active Directory users and computers, and I have a delegation set up here in HR. The only way to view this using Microsoft tools is to go to Security, HD Text, Advanced, HD Text, Edit, and you will see that HD Text have the reset password delegation. Right? Well, how do you do this? In a fashion that you want to know what it is and you want to know reporting. Remember, the reporting is the most important thing. Reporting and alerting. If anyone goes in and they change any permission on any OU, again, I want you to be impressed with this because this is some powerful stuff. I have an alert set up for that already. OU ACL changes. If anyone changes an organizational unit ACL, I can send out an email. I can make it a critical alert. Even with Active Directory permission changes. I can also generate current ports on OUs, NTFS reports, security reports, AD objects accessible by accounts. So I can generate the reports that I need. Now, I want to finish because we've been focusing on security. But what we have done is we have actually gone in and we have helped you with the idea around compliance. You'll see that we have compliance reports here. In ADAudit Plus, we have reports broken out for you in the different areas of compliance. SOX, HIPAA, PCI, GLBA. But I told you earlier that compliance doesn't equal security. I mean, you'll notice that SOX doesn't have everything I just showed you because it doesn't care. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't care. The combination of ADAudit Plus and ADManager Plus can help every single organization get to the point of being compliant with Active Directory. You just have to know to use the tools. You have to know what to look for. We tell you what to look for. We help you. Right on this page, we're giving you the secret coder ring of everything that you use that list. ADManager, ADAudit now. You can download the tools, configure the tools, go through that website, and in less than a week, you can have reports being generated, alerts being generated for all of those areas, hands down. Less than a week. No other tool can do that. And you're going to be compliant. Okay? So I hope that I shed some light on this idea around compliance and security and in-depth reporting on it. We have tried to give you the resources, not only in the tools, but the resources and the guidance on what to look for and how to do it. That's where that website on the security hardening comes in. We try to give you resources like blogs and our emails. Please email us with questions. This is an overwhelming topic in my opinion. Now, what do I mean by an overwhelming topic? What I mean by that is this is complex. This is not easy, okay? This type of configuration can be very complicated. So if you have questions around what to do, how to do it, please email us. Myself and every other person that's on the Active Directory team, our mission is to help you. We love, and I know that sounds a bit weird, but we love to help organizations. We love to help administrators be more efficient and more secure. So please email us, okay? Come to our events. Come to our future webinars. This is the way, as an admin, that you can get in tune with meeting compliance and getting more secure, is to help people like us that take the time to help you, okay? Now, I know that there have been quite a few questions coming along, and those will be answered if they haven't already been answered, either in an email or whatnot. I'm done talking. I hope this has been a beneficial webinar for you. Hopefully it's given you some insight into our views, into some tools that can do this. You have our email. This will be recorded, as I said. You should receive an email with the recording link, and I'm going to let you get back to work. I hope you have a great rest of the day. I hope this was informational for you. I want to thank you all for your time. I want to thank the AD Solutions team for helping me out with the Q&A, and for Derek Melber and the rest of the AD Solutions team. Until we meet again, thank you and have a great rest of your day.